OpenAI, Google, Meta, they're all wrong. And that opens an opportunity for you to make money as a creator, specifically by creating your own version of Agentic AI specifically for your audience. Let me explain a few things. Here, what is Agentic AI? Before we jump into Agentic AI, I have to explain to you kind of like the differences between different types of AIs quickly. I'm going to take only about a minute or two. Essentially, the idea is right now we're kind of like in this world of artificial narrow intelligence, right? Where we have prescriptive kind of like tasks that ChatGPTs of the world, Geminis of the world, right, can go and execute within a certain preset parameters, including the data that was ingested into those tools. AGI essentially the idea is that its own identity essentially becomes this quote unquote individual in digital form that can accomplish tasks, self-learn, self-educate themselves, and kind of like go explore, find new data sources, incorporate them, and function like a normal human being as we think through educational process of trying to figure out the new subject, the new language, becoming subject matter expert for certain types of things. Like AGI would do it on its own without a human having to feed the code or the data, it'll just go do it on your own. And this is the holy grail. All these major companies are essentially racing to the point where one of them will come up with AGI. And essentially, that will enable them to potentially take over industry after industry with an ability to create digital human intelligence or like human intelligence that will go do all this job. You won't have to train them, you won't have to code them, you just go tell them this is a task, go accomplish it, and they're going to accomplish it in seconds. Something that theoretically human would take days, hours, weeks, or maybe even years to accomplish. And so the whole idea is that this is what they're striving for. This is why you see these crazy valuations, because essentially it's a whole other separate topic than my issue with valuations, but a lot of the VCs, a lot of the public markets, they just price in as if that has happened and as if they took over the entire world, right? With this kind of like technology, and they're able to just completely keep growing, right? There are some limits to it. Obviously, people are not completely going crazy, but it's all priced into the point where it's almost like a reality. And this is where a couple of weeks ago, when I was talking about potential crash in the global economy, potentially thanks to OpenAI, that would happen because there's so much priced in right now into every single economy, especially in the United States, that it's all going to be reset down if they realize that OpenAI really years and years away from AGI, which I think is the case. They're probably a decade at least away, but who knows, right? They might prove me wrong in a few years. Now, coming back to you and why it's important for you is because you can essentially go and take advantage of this because you're not developing AGI. These companies spending hundreds of billions of dollars right now developing it. But what I think they're missing is going after the use case of Agentic AI, because Agentic AI, instead of trying to be this master of everything, just really focuses on one narrow use case and does it very well. The best way I can describe it to you is using a video game. So like a Baldur's Gate is one of those examples of RPG video games where you have all different skills, right? And in case of OpenAI, in case of Google Gemini, they're trying to crank every single one skill immediately to the maximum. Where someone like yourself, as a creator who is very familiar with a particular niche and understands the niche's needs, you can create an AI tool that essentially just focuses on one skill and do it well. And the way it also differs from AI agent is that AI agent is essentially something like ChatGPT, right? Like there's a prompt window, there's certain task you can give to it, and then it will go do certain things, but it's not necessarily as independent as it can be. And the whole idea of building agentic AI is creating a tool that can go and essentially complete sequence of different tasks depending on what was predetermined by its creator. And now coming back to you as a, visual creator, video creator, audio creator, podcast creator, you can start thinking about what are some of the use cases in your market, in your niche, in your industry right now that essentially are lacking maybe automation, lacking a quick way of doing something, quick way of coming through the data, maybe a quick way of coming through the data, creating a certain output, sending that output to certain individuals. Like there's probably a sequence of steps that currently your audience, your customers, if you're selling potentially some version of digital product, maybe like a planner, your customers have to go do it on their own, and they have to think about their day. They have to download and buy your planner, put it all information in, print it out, and so on and so forth. Could you create an application that actually in a conversational mode helps them think through their priorities? think through and ask them about their kids' school schedule, their, I don't know, personal work schedule, workout routines, their family commitments, birthdays, all those things, and then take into account the goals that that person set, and automatically create for them the planner already pre-filled with a lot of this information. So you're moving as a creator from the point where you used to sell digital planners to now the point where you have a tool that you offer potentially for a subscription service every month that the customer can continuously use and create something that is a lot more bespoke to them versus you having to think through the PDF file that addresses multiple different needs or maybe several different PDFs for multiple different use cases. And all of it comes down, and I know it might be a lot already, but I wanted to bring up this visual that I used when I taught a course at like Creator Now vidIQ for a year, specifically about a few questions that can help you understand and think through, okay, what can it look like? Forget for a second about limitations of the code. Luckily, we have AI tools right now to help you with that. Think about a few topics specifically in your industry that are painful right now, right? And think of them through a perspective of these 4 questions, right? I always like to ask creators to kind of like inquire with themselves, like why the viewer is hiring you, right? Get to the value that you're providing and why are you popular and why they pick your videos and your content and subscribe to your channel over someone else. Think about, okay, how does your content satisfy the job? But also then think about, okay, but what else can they do to kind of like accomplish this? And again, if maybe sticking with the planner example, since that's what I used earlier, today they can download the planner from you, for example, and they're probably consuming your content. If you're creating that space, you probably create it in the productivity space and you talk a lot about how to make the most out of your day, how to think about the prioritization, all those kind of things, right? You're Ali Abdal, Matt Devel of the world. Could your viewer then, instead of going to you, buy a course from someone else, buy a book? Sure, yes. For the planner, instead of downloading a PDF, they can probably go to the local bookstore, Barnes and Nobles, go to Amazon and order essentially a planner and just fill it in with the paper, right? There are other ways that they can accomplish this. But then you can kind of like come back to this conversation about some sort of agentic application that you built as a creator for them. And you can say, okay, but how can my product satisfy this job, right? And always the good methodology for this, once you understand and you answer this question, you know what value you provide, you know why they come to you, and you ask yourself, okay, I have a product or I have an idea for the product today that was very much old school way of thinking, right? Like a digital download, a physical product. Could I combine that idea with something else that they can, quote unquote, hire to do this job and do it better by using a software application, right? And I promise you, forget about right now the limitation of, oh, how do I create it? How do I actually, like, I don't know the code. I don't know any kind of like security items. Like, I don't know how to put it all together. How do I charge for it? Don't worry about it right now. World is your oyster. How can you create a tool that will accomplish multiple different things for them? Some of the best software applications, in my experience, did not start from the fact that someone really thought through, like the product, the packaging, the code. Here's how it's going to work. Here's how it's going to look. They click here, they click there. This is what it's going to do on every click. No, it always starts with a use case and the problem that you're solving for. And so if you understand the problem that you're solving for your customer, right? In this case, your viewer, you understand what's missing because you are in that industry. You're a creator who speaks about this topic. You are in that niche. So you can analyze and see, like, is there something close? And maybe there's a combination of different software tools folks use today, right? It can be program management tools. It can be Notion. It can be something else. It can be a Google spreadsheet, right? For all we know. Now, if world is your oyster, how would you solve for this problem? What kind of tool would you build? Could you build an application that actually creates a very immersive experience for your viewer and essentially prompts them with a couple of questions, shows them a couple of visuals, maybe asks them for their input in some other form? Maybe they need to record something as an audio, maybe upload an image if that's the kind of like, niche that you're in. And then that transforms into the series of end results that you wish you could deliver to your viewer without necessarily them having to go to multiple different solutions or go keep talking back and forth with ChatGPT or Google Gemini to figure out how they can do it in that format. And this is where the beauty of agentic AI comes in, is because you're stripping away the complexity of having the interactions that have to teach someone like AI agent, like ChatGPT, about the problem that you're trying to solve for, and then try to figure out how to write the right prompt to get back the result that you need. And it takes time and it takes effort. Instead, you as an expert, as a creator in that space, you create that tool in the form of AI agentic tool that they can then go and interact with, and it's going to output for them the final result. The other good example can be cooking. Is one of my favorite niches to talk about because there's so many interesting applications there from the commercial perspective. And one of those things, and to this day, it's like it's an issue. There's some apps that are trying to solve it, but like, imagine you are a cooking creator that very much kind of like converges on several different topics. It's how to cook in a healthy way, how to cook on a budget, but you also stick into a certain particular diet, and you also have certain particular dietary restrictions. For example, today your viewer will likely have to go to you and then someone else and then someone else and some other resource to assemble several different things, because maybe you're very focused on the health conscious eating and kind of like figuring out different ingredients, but those ingredients might not be available for your viewer in their region or their country that they're in. Or maybe you are really into fitness, but you're not to the point where you can be a nutritionist and write them a nutrition plan, right? Could you then think of an agentic AI tool that essentially is a website that they go in, that prompts them with a few questions, including kind of like, hey, what is your dietary restrictions? Which region do you live? Maybe which city do you live? Okay, give me the inputs of your other goals. Maybe there is some goal like, hey, I want to shed 20 kilos, 10 kilos, 20 pounds, whatever it is, right? Whatever your metric imperial weight system. You take all those inputs, and you yourself, because you're an expert in this space, you preset certain parameters within that agentic AI to say, okay, for the fitness goals, you need to go to this data source. Okay, use the map, and when they give you the location, run the analysis of all the grocery stores in the area, go to their websites and see what's available in those grocery stores to make sure we can give them the right ingredients that are available for them in their region, right? And something reasonable, maybe like within 25-mile radius, right? Like 30-40 kilometer radius. So it's like drivable, or at least they can take a public transportation to one of those stores. Then go analyze the calorie counts, analyze the dietary restrictions. If they have a nut allergy, make sure you exclude all the nut allergy product recommendation. Again, right? Go through all this sequence of steps as a tool on the back end for your viewer, and then spit out for them the meal plan that addresses several different things. So all of a sudden, where in the past they came to you within that jobs to be done framework and hired you because you provided great advice on how to eat healthy, now you can expand the value and add additional things. Again, coming back to one of the questions on the chart of who else they can hire, and you can now provide additional supplemental value from making sure that dietary recommendation fits their fitness goals, fits their physical location, right? Like what's available to them, budget as well, because maybe using certain ingredients and certain more expensive cheeses, but they can substitute for the cheaper cheeses. You can embed a lot of this information in the tool that you're building, and essentially create a solution that allows them to do a lot more with a lot less time spent right there on your website. And again, you can put it behind the paywall, you can charge for it as a one-time fee, you can decide on monetization structure. Get creative. Think about the value that you provide. Think about what are the things that the viewer might need or might have, or what are the sources that they use today to solve for this kind of solution, and come up with something unique. And again, don't limit yourself right now. Think about, okay, what is that general idea? Like, what can I build? What kind of solution can I provide for my viewer that's going to satisfy those needs? So once you've done that, I wanted to show you a couple of examples of someone who've done it as well, and just to give you some ideas that there are websites out there for you to look at and see how they're executing it today for their niches. Edu8 is a good example of one of those kind of like solutions. And again, I don't know all the intricacies of how they build it, but the whole idea of this solution is that it allows educators come in, prompt several different things in terms of like what they're trying to educate. I think, yeah, this is good examples, right? They're selecting the resource, they're entering the topic that they want to teach their class, their students on, and then they essentially generate a bunch of different potential, hey, here's, you can have some quizzes, you can have some visuals, you can do this, you can do that. So essentially that's the teachers and educators who realized that they have an expertise in how to teach, and they can consolidate a lot of tools into the single system and simply prompt the user to say, tell me what topic you're trying to educate. Tell me probably the age and those kind of parameters. And I'm going to spit out for you a bunch of different options that you can then apply, download as PDFs, print them out, bring them to class, use them as a PowerPoint presentation in the classroom. and essentially be a lot more efficient with your programmatic approach to the classroom without again having to spend hours upon hours upon hours of researching each individual piece, figuring out how to create this PDF, figuring out how to create this PowerPoint. It's all created in one place, right? And the other example is Ghostwriter, I guess that's the best way to refer to it, is essentially kind of like an agentic tool specifically for writing LinkedIn posts. I know we're living in a dystopic future, but it is useful. If you're a LinkedIn influencer, if you're also a writer who've been writing a lot on LinkedIn, you understand what vibes well with the audience, you understand how LinkedIn algorithm works, you understand all the centricities. You can create a tool that essentially enables others who want to leverage your experience, but instead of just watching hours upon hours of content, figuring out, okay, how do they write this? Is this correct? Grammatically, what does it look like? Hey, here's a tool. You pay anywhere between $5 to $15 a month, and it will help you generate a bunch of content for your LinkedIn influencer career, right? Great examples. And it's like, start thinking about your niche and start thinking about, okay, what can you provide that might look like this? It is, again, very simple, goes through very specific sequence of steps for a very specific use case. Again, right, you see, there's a good value. It's like, it doesn't completely changes the world for your viewer. It saves 4 to 5 hours a week. But 4 to 5 hours a week, even if you're making kind of like a US level minimum wage, say it's like, again, call it $15, it's $60 in time value saved every week. So $240 every month, all for the price of $15. So it's a very well priced product in that regard, right? For example, for this specific tool. And you can kind of like think about the dynamic of what kind of value you provide, how much time you save to your customer, and decide whether you're charging them a recurring fee, one-time fee, right? There, you can decide on a commercial strategy there. And coming back to the whole point of, okay, but how the heck do I even build this? I would say don't overthink the prototype at first. Think about as complex of a thing as just a page with some sort of prompt in it and a few different things that the customer can do, and think about the backend and how do you limit that agent to the thing that you needed to accomplish the most. And it can start with one very specific use case. Like in the case of dietary, maybe it starts with just a recipe, or starts with just like, hey, go analyze the grocery stores and give them the list of ingredients they can buy in their area within the limitations of what I think is a good ingredient for the recipes that are offered on my website, right? Like as much as you go. And the way you can build it and play around with it, Claude, from everything that I've heard from the friends that I have who are software engineers, seem to be the best right now tool when it comes to code, writing the code. It's like code vibing. ChatGPT is not bad as well, but essentially between the two, you can work out a model within which you essentially build the shell of that tool as MVP, minimal viable product, and start experimenting and testing with it, right? The whole idea with something like this is to get it out into the market and start getting user feedback. You don't have to charge up front. You can just be like, hey guys, I'm just playing around with this. I'm trying to stay on the top, kind of like on the edge of this industry. I'm figuring out, okay, what kind of like tool can I offer you as an additional value for all your hard work, right? And things that you've tried to accomplish in your career. And here's what I have. Please come. It's in the beta mode. Expect errors. Play around with it. Let me know what you think. Please provide the feedback, right? And you can ask Claude essentially in the prompt to be like, hey, create for me this particular module, an application that I'm going to post on this website. And I wanted to do this, and this. And it's like a list of different things. There are plenty of also videos out there to kind of like learn better how to vibe code using tools like Claude. So I would highly recommend for you to go check out, learn the tools that we're using, videos, learn a little bit more about vibe coding, think about how do you build a prototype. And my advice is that use that to figure out if you really have the market. Like if your audience start going crazy about this tool, they're like, we want more. Please give me these 15 features. Like, what can I do? Can I get the premium access? Can I get da? Like once you start hearing this kind of feedback, you know, you're kind of like, you're there. You have something on your hands there that you can work out. At that point, I would highly recommend to start thinking and talking around, looking around for a potential technical partner who are actually maybe a team of software engineers, and there are plenty of consultants who can do it for you. There are dedicated teams all over the world, right? That can go and help you build the tool, and you basically hire them on a fixed fee and they build you the application. You might have a friend who is actually pretty good into it. The reason I don't want you to start capturing like credit card information with this, or starting to like, you know, put it in the hands for a fee of millions of people, is that Vibe coding is great, but it's at the level of like junior software engineer. Imagine if you're a creator, like you saw some of these AI tools for editing, they're like a junior editor. They can help you like work through the video and like, clean things up and remove some hums and ums, but they won't be able to create a story, right? Similar here, they can go through like these vibe coding tools like ChatGPT, like Claude, they will create for you an application. It will work, but there will be code bugs in it. There might be and definitely will be security exposure. You probably heard about this application called T, where like the women were, sharing information about who they're dating and whether they're good or bad, and they were rating them and whatnot. That thing leaked and everyone got access to everything because pretty much the entire app was built on the vibe coding, and it was like massive, Titanic sized holes in their security infrastructure. So someone who is decent enough at essentially being quote unquote hacker, right, the black hat, they were able to get through the system and basically break the entire application and leak out all the information from it. Don't be in this situation. This is why I'm saying focus on using these tools to build an agentic AI for your use case, for your audience, and test it as a minimum viable product. Get a feel for it, understand what the needs are, start talking to your audience about getting your audience used to this, see what kind of reaction they're gonna get, continue to gather feedback. And if you feel like there's something commercially there, start thinking about finding the right technical partner, someone who's an experienced developer who will ensure that they'll likely still use the same tools, but they actually know what they're doing. And they know how to set up the coding infrastructure and the security infrastructure. They can help you set up something that you can maintain and update and work through with them or some other team, and essentially continuously grow over time. And if you start making revenue, who knows, maybe there'll be the time for you to hire someone full-time to be your chief technical officer or chief engineer to go and actually work on this tool full-time, right? For now that you know what agentic AI is, you start thinking about the use case, go play around with these tools, create a use case, put it in front of your audience and see what they think, iterate from there until the point you feel like there's something commercially viable. Hire someone to help you build this app properly and start charging money for it. And then hopefully it creates a positive feedback loop that allows you to do a lot more with it over time. So let me know what you've done and what you came up with. I'm actually very curious. If you have any thoughts or ideas, we can brainstorm in the comment section. You can just reach out to me. And even I'm eating my own cooking. I have a couple of ideas that I'm thinking about that I want to put out there and both go through the process, because I do want to be a lot more kind of like knowledgeable about all the different AI tools. Again, I have my skepticism around some of the things that these companies do, but ultimately these tools will continue to become more and more prevalent in our lives. It's like coming back to the creator world, being an editor 30 years ago and saying, I have scissors, I have my tapes, and I can go and cut the actual film tape, and that's how I edit the videos. Why would I learn Adobe Premiere Pro? No, whatever version was there. Movie Magic, I don't know. Today, no one does that unless you're really into kind of like being old school. 99% of us, we're all using these digital tools and we edit. Same for the Photoshop. And I feel like AI tools are in the same position. There's a lot of skepticism there, rightfully a lot of concerns, especially around legal ramifications, copyright laws, things of that nature. But ultimately, these tools are here to stay. And they will only get better over time. So do you want to fall behind the times? Or do you want to be someone who actually leverages to not quote unquote destroy your creator career, but actually augment it and become even more useful to your audience? I hope this was useful for you. Let me know in the comment section below. Stay on the lookout for what I come up with, what I cook up with some of these tools, and I'll see you next Saturday. Peace.